Welcome everyone, this is another episode of For Reels. Tonight we're going to be talking about Her, and we have Matt and I, of course, and we also have special guests Andrea and Chris to give us their, noggin thoughts. First off, Matt, what did you think of the film Her?
Her made me have feelings, I gotta say. It was definitely enjoyable. Definitely goes to some places that the average movie is not going to go and get you thinking about some things that most movies aren't going to take you to.
I thought it was a really refreshing relationship movie. It seemed like a really down-to-earth, actual relationship movie where it kind of explores all the aspects of what it means to be in love with someone. And even though it was such a weird subject matter of being like a person with an operating system, it's oddly, the way that it worked together was, I think, cool. So I like that part.
I liked it for the most part. I had some issues as a programmer with some of the basic concepts of the AI, like the ability for an AI to feel physical pleasure of sorts.
Yeah, that part was interesting.
I agree with Andrea. It's a very refreshing love story, and I think it really delves, obviously, because it's an AI experiencing what love is and explaining that love is not, it's more than like a physical feeling.
Before I saw this film, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this because of what, but I was actually surprised by how much I did like, and I really, really liked the film. I do think it was refreshing, but also it was just believable, right? I mean, if you were pitching, a guy falls in love with a computer. Okay, yeah, so you mean like an 80s sci-fi comedy? Right. It doesn't sound legit.
Right.
But it not only that they sold it, and it worked completely, partially I think because of the performance. I mean, I'm still not sure how much of the character of Samantha is due to the writing and due to Scarlett Johansson. For someone who's not physically on screen to still have a almost physical presence, I thought that was interesting.
Right.
Just an amazing job.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of love and him falling in love with computer, okay, well that's not a real thing, and that subject matter, that I think people feel uncomfortable by that. You mentioned it, but I definitely, in our theater, there was a couple people who were kind of giggling at parts that are just like...
There's a knee-jerk reaction to it. You're saying, the way we respond to a movie like this is it's a guy in an operating system. You almost assume it's a movie with the one with Ryan Reynolds, it was the one with, he falls in love with a doll.
Green Lantern.
Yeah. No. Well, when you kind of figure out that he's falling in love with something like this, you have to kind of sit there and force yourself to be like, okay, no, I really want to try and take this seriously. This is actually, it makes sense. I don't want to have this knee-jerk reaction to it and not take it to this point where you're like, this could make sense. You have to kind of put yourself in the spot where okay, I'll see where this is going, and maybe you can actually kind of understand where he's coming from with it.
I was surprised that as the movie went on, I actually saw the character Samantha more and more as a character as she started to evolve and become more human.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it follows all the same beats and all the same narrative structural tropes as a normal romance does, right? The meet cute, that conversation where there's, that's a standard romantic, they're bonding, you can see the chemistry, right? They're just as if it was, Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan. It's the same type of thing. It's this, you see it immediately.
The movie, I felt, covered pretty much every situation that could pretty much arise in a normal relationship between a non-existent AI and a person. They go through all the things, whether it's the AI getting jealous over what it would be like to have a body, and that whole weird scene where they try to find that surrogate and stuff like that. All that stuff, all the way until the end, it's just a bunch of situations, that they have to overcome.
Yeah. They really delve into the depths of what that could. They don't just glaze over the surface. They really go into the depths of all the different facets. And I think going towards that too, what I really loved about the movie on a greater scale is what it was said about intimacy. And obviously, it kind of projects because it's pseudo sci-fi.
Right.
But ultimately, it's there to allow us to reflect on our current state, right? And just every shot, no one is interacting with each other. All the extras are constantly, if you look and watch all the extras in the background, they're all talking to themselves on the on their Bluetooth.
Which I always found, I realized that, and I found that interesting, because you think, it's what is a world where everybody's just talking to themselves, essentially? That's a really weird
It's a weird
world.
thing where everyone craves this intimacy, but at the same time, they force everyone out. So it's this weird dichotomy that we find ourselves in now, and I thought the film did an awesome job of kind of taking these broad kind of ideas that we're dealing with in society, but also it being ultimately just a love story.
And,
Right.
Well, and I think part of going off of that, when people are kind of pushing themselves away from these actual people that they could have relationships to, I thought the movie was refreshing because it really showed limitations of people. Like, we really can't do so many things. You see Samantha's character able to do so many different things with their relationship, and it points out that it's like a human can't do those things.
Right.
So and it kind of goes off of saying, it's like, well, maybe that's what people are kind of striving for, and kind of being able to go off that.
Yeah, and that idea is foreshadowed and set up at the very beginning of the movie when she's like, hey, let me look through your emails. Like, he's like, oh, I've been meaning to search through that forever. And she's like, these 84 are good. I'm going to delete the other. Like, you see how efficient she is, how she thinks, how she works, and that sets up how the rest of the movie, ultimately where it ends up. What did you guys think of the futuristic world? Because it had to be a future movie.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really cool. I mean, I think it's, again, the subtle kind of things where it's like you recognize the familiarities, but it's removed enough that it's not too uncomfortable, right? You're like, oh, it's still sci-fi, I could enjoy it and kind of pretend it's not real. And the pants. I mean...
Yeah, I guess...
The beltless pants.
Fashion in the future has evolved just to the point where all of our pants are worn on our waist.
I mean, basically the hipsters won.
Yes. It felt like an Apple commercial kind of the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I think overall we all enjoyed the film. We all agree that it was a really interesting take on love and what it means to kind of deal with that in the future. I don't think there was anything majorly bad. We all felt anything about it. So overall, popcorn and thumbs.
On popcorn and thumbs, I also.